We're here today to continue a discussion that began a few weeks ago at a joint subcommittee hearing about the President's executive actions on immigration. I want to thank the subcommittee chairman, particularly Ron DeSantis and Jim Jordan, for starting the committee's review of new immigration apprehension policies that Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson announced on November 20th of the year 2014. We now have a better understanding of the various ways those policies may undermine local law enforcement efforts to protect the public. Today we're going to follow up with questions for the newly confirmed Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Ms. Sarah Saldana, and about how ICE will actually enforce the immigration laws and how their enforcement posture will affect public policy. We want to particularly thank the men and women who do the good, hard job and work within ICE. They put their lives on the line every day, and we're very grateful for their service, and we're thankful for your service and participation here today. This hearing is important because it allows us to determine whether non-citizens who committed serious offenses will be apprehended, detained, and then ultimately removed per the promise that the President of the United States gave the American people. The President's executive actions will have two very different effects on approximately 11 million non-citizens unlawfully present in the United States. Through deferred action for childhood arrivals, or DACA, and deferred action for parents of Americans and lawful permanent residents, or DAPA as it's referred to, the administration intends to provide benefits to about 5 million people otherwise unlawfully present in the country. Earlier this month, the subcommittees conducted a hearing focused on how these executive actions may make it easier for these individuals to register to vote illegally. Just this past Tuesday, the subcommittees examined the fiscal costs of these actions to the federal and state governments. Secretary Johnson's November 20th, 2014 announcement will also have an effect on others unlawfully present in the United States. In essence, it will provide de facto amnesty for many of the remaining 6 million non-citizens unlawfully present in the United States who are not directly covered by DACA or DAPA. Unless these individuals fall within the carefully circumscribed categories, their removal will not be a priority for Department of Homeland Security. But the core reason we're here today, even under the immigration policies that predated that announcement, convicted criminals who are unlawfully present in the United States have been released in staggering numbers. And this I simply just don't understand. The President, the Secretary, the administration, time and again has promised the American people that if you're convicted, if you're a criminal, you're going to be deported, but that's not what's happening. According to ICE, 36,007 convicted criminal non-citizens were released in fiscal year 2013. In the year 2014, that number is roughly 30,000. More than 60,000 people. These are people that are here illegally, committed a crime, were convicted, and then they were released back into the public rather than being deported. That's the question that poses us today. Of the 36,007 individuals from the year 2013, not too long ago, they amassed nearly 88,000 convictions, not accusations, convictions, including 193 homicide convictions, 426 sexual assault convictions, 303 kidnapping convictions, 16,070 drunken or drugged driving convictions. As of September 2014, 5,700 of those individuals went on to commit another crime. They're here illegally, they get caught, they get convicted, they get released, they go back and commit another crime. 1,000 of those individuals were convicted again for offenses including lewd acts with a child under the age of 14, indecent liberty with a child cruelty, possible injury or death, driving while intoxicated. I can't even imagine being a parent and having my child molested by somebody who's here illegally. The President promises he's going to be deported, and they didn't. They released them back out. And I want to know from ICE why that is. It's intolerable. And I could never look the parents of those children in the face with what has been done here. The Joint Subcommittee heard compelling testimony from two family members of victims of these types of criminals. In January of this year, 21-year-old Grant Roenbeck was murdered while working at a convenience store in Mesa, Arizona by a non-citizen unlawfully present in the United States. Prior to Grant's death, his murderer, Apolinar Altamirano, was facing deportation proceedings after being convicted of burglary but released on a $10,000 bond just 4 days after his detention in 2013. In March of 2008, Jamil Shaw was a 17-year-old high school football star in Los Angeles, California, when he was murdered by Pedro Espinoza, an illegal immigrant gang member who had been released from jail just 2 days before after serving time for assault with a deadly weapon. They released him back into the public. While the Department of Homeland Security was invited to testify at that previous hearing, they declined. And I think it's important for the department representative to hear and see from the American people those lives that are directly impacted by these policies. We put together a very brief video, which is a highlight from the last hearing, and I'd like to play that now, if I could, please.
I'd like to tell you about my nephew, Grant Ronnebeck. Grant was a 21-year-old son, brother, nephew, and grandson. He was a pretty typical young American man, but to us, he was a very special family and community member. At 4 a.m. on June 22, 2015, Grant assisted a man buying cigarettes. The man then pulled a gun and stated, "You're not going to take my money?" Grant immediately offered up the cigarettes to the man, who shot him in the face, killing him. Apolinar Altamirano, the alleged murderer, is an illegal immigrant. He's a self-proclaimed member of the Mexican Mafia and says he has ties to the Sinaloa drug cartel. He never served time in custody. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency released the now convicted felon pending a deportation hearing. In the 2 years since then, while awaiting his deportation hearing, Altamirano has had 2 orders of protection filed against him, including one from a woman who claimed he threatened to kill her and pointed a gun at her boyfriend. Altamirano was still allowed to be free in our country. I believe there is simply no excuse for ICE to be releasing individuals like this back onto our streets to endanger and kill hardworking Americans.
My son, Jamil Andre Shaw II, was murdered by a dreamer, DACA recipient, a child brought to this country by no fault of his own. My family's peace and freedom were stolen by an illegal alien from Mexico. How many Americans killed by illegal aliens are too many? 1, 2, 100? Ask any parent whose child was murdered by an illegal alien how many is too many. As one of those parents, I am here to tell you that 1 is too many. My son, Jamil Shaw II, was murdered while walking on his own street. He shot my son in the stomach and then in the head, killing him. The illegal alien dreamer that murdered my son only served 4 months of an 8-month sentence for assault with a deadly weapon and battery on a police officer. He was released from the county jail the day before he executed my son. Why was this violent illegal alien allowed to walk the streets of America instead of being deported? Why was ICE not called to pick up this violent invader? President Obama said, if you are a criminal, you'll be deported.
I don't know how you look into the eye of Mr. Shaw. Our heart bleeds for somebody like that. Person's here illegally. Are there good people that are here that probably shouldn't be here? Yeah, I'm sure they are. But we're talking about the criminal aliens. We're talking about people that are convicted of violent crimes. And instead of being picked up and deported, as the president promised, that person was put back out on the street and committed murder. I'm going to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 1,000 of these convictions. This is a list. It's aliens numbered 1 to 1,000. Breakdown of subsequent convictions associated with criminal aliens placed in non-custodial setting, and this is just the fiscal year 2013. Without objection, so ordered. It's not difficult to imagine that people like Mr. Ronnebeck and Mr. Shaw often wonder if their loved ones would still be here today if our immigration enforcement laws were enforced. Secretary Johnson's November 20th announcement exposes the American people to even greater danger. In his November 20th, 2014 guidance, Secretary Johnson set forth 3 levels for priorities for immigration enforcement. Top priority for deportation was listed as terrorists, spies, and other threats to national security. Those apprehended at the border and ports, some criminal street gang members, and certain aliens convicted of felonies. While these should be priorities for deportation, the agency is no longer considering as the top priority for apprehension aliens who've been convicted of certain misdemeanors, including sexual abuse or exploitation, drug distribution or trafficking, burglary, firearms offenses, driving under the influence, domestic violence. Talk about a war on women. This is not a priority for this administration. This is not a Tier 1 priority, according to Homeland Security. These are offenses that also endanger our communities and affect a much larger number of Americans in a very personal way. Many criminals, including some that Congress has stated should be subject to mandatory detention, are not listed as a priority for removal at all. While Secretary Johnson's November 20th, 2014 prioritization guidelines dictate that, quote, due to limited resources, DHS and its components cannot respond to all immigration violations or remove all persons illegally in the United States, end quote, the Department does not appear to be using all the resources it has available to enforce the immigration laws. According to statistics from ICE reviewed by the Center for Immigration Studies from 2009 to 2014, there was almost a 60% decline in annual deportations. In other words, while 2009 ICE deported more than 236,000 individuals from the interior of the United States, in 2014 ICE deported around 1,224. The number of criminals deported from the interior declined by 21% between 2013 and 2014. Went from 110,115 down to 86,923. Further, Congress provided ICE with funding for 34,000 detention beds and mandated those beds be filled. According to a review of ICE records, however, the average daily population for detainees has declined every year since fiscal year 2012. As of January 2015, the average daily detainee population was 25,480, the lowest level since 2006 when the bed mandate was at 20,800. I've seen firsthand the hard work that the people within Customs and Border Patrol and ICE, I can't thank them enough for their good work. But we're not fulfilling the mission that was promised by the President of the United States. I think this body is committed to making sure that criminal aliens are deported, and that's why we're having this hearing here today.